more and more, up to its distinctive cone shape, which you see in most stratovolcanoes, that large sloped angles with the slope is highest on top, etc. So like so, you can see that. And what happened was the magma chamber deep underneath would slowly build up over time. As magma comes up through the mantle, the asthenosphere, the volcanic neck, and there's a smaller chamber within it, as where the primary pressure is. And as the pressure increases, through the viscosity and the dissolved gases in the magma, eventually the mountain just can't take any more. It erupts, blows its top completely, with a tremendous cloud of ash, varying in sizes depending on the nature of the eruption, and that rains down onto the mountainside, creating these pyroclastic flows, and also lahars if associated precipitation is present. These flows are what generally give the mountain its characteristic shape as they race down the slopes of the mountain and build up at the bottom and less at the top, and things like that. And fragments of intermediate rocks, especially, build up along the entire area surrounding. And as a result, through repeated eruptions, the San Francisco mountain became this typical mountain that we see here. And the inner basin itself was formed through eruptions which sheared off parts of the mountain and then eroded down after it became extinct. So, it was believed that it had what we call a flank eruption, wherein, as you can see, these are images of Mount St. Helens, which is a very relevant and easy example. The San Francisco mountain probably formed in a very similar method to this, and in possibly its latest eruptions, it had a flank eruption where the magma came up more through the side here. It tends to go wherever the pressure is least at the moment. Probably the hot spot, or at least my theory would be that as the hot spot was moving, that was what caused it to orient itself a little more right before it became extinct as the hot spot moved further. And it blew off most of the top section and of the side, like so. And it made a huge explosion, and ash rained down, and most of the top section of the volcano therefore became gone and eroded down over time. And as you can see here, pretty much the whole side of the mountain just collapsed, and this happens very rapidly, as seen here for the actual eruption. And over time, erosion created the inner basin, and eventually the mountain eroded itself down to a sort of crescent shape. If I can there we go. And that's not too terribly distinctive, but it makes sort of a bowl. And this would have been the direction of the eruption. Up here, you get the peaks. Up the highest would be Humphreys, and off to the side, you have this nice crescent, Agassiz, and all the other associated peaks. So the original height, because of the top was blown off, its original height was actually much higher than the top of Humphreys Peak, which is the highest one. We believe it to have been about 3,000 feet larger than its 12,500 or so that it is now. Moving on. Now, because of all these variety of topics that we have a number of things we could talk about on any given tours that we decide to do. 2-day trips, in particular, we want to look at. There could be an archaeological trip based around the Native American groups, what their cultures were like, what sort of things they associated the mountain with, what they used with the mountain, and there's definitely ruins and monuments surrounding the area that can be looked at, and there may already be some infrastructure for those. We could also do seasonal changes, where an especially famous feature of the mountain is its aspen trees in the fall, as they change colors as the leaves search for moisture. The various wildlife changes and up through the ecological zones we could be viewed. I know there's some. I believe I'm not sure if it's protected, how protected it is from hunting activities, but there's definitely wildlife that is used for game in the nearby areas. You've got. You could also view the associated snow time in the skiing. There could be some. Well, there's skiing. You could have snowshoeing. You could have cross-country skiing even. I know most people don't do as much cross-country as downhill these days. But it would again depend probably on what level of physical capabilities we would be looking for from this whole project. What sort of people are we going to attract to these tour guides on these tours? There's also a variety we could talk about of the geology. As we will be touring around the inner basin itself, theoretically, you can talk about, say, here was the magma chamber of the whole volcanic system, and you can traverse up through the ecologic zones. And as I said before, some of the upper parts of the zones might be a bit too much. I know most of Snowbowl isn't even in the Arctic zone. The Arctic zone would be like way up in the upper bowl where hardly anyone goes. Only crazy people go up there. But nonetheless, the geology and or ecologic zones could make for a very simply designed tour. So overall, there's a variety of tours we can do. And one thing we could also talk about is its relevance in modern day cultures. The aquifer within the inner basin area, where all the snowpack comes down and melts, is a very important resource for Flagstaff and the surrounding areas. And there's many politics and ecologic resource projects associated with the aquifer in the inner basin, and since we are directly in the inner basin, it would be very easy to talk about that. Go around, talk about how the snow melts, creates the aquifer, and things like that. So, primarily the archaeological, seasonal, geologic, ecologic, and local environments. There's a huge variety of tours we could actually do just in the inner basin area alone. It might be possible to even negotiate with Snowbowl. I know they kind of have a tight grip around that whole area, but if additional lifts around the areas could be constructed and provided as part of a tour, it would definitely help us with certain aspects of the geologic and ecologic tours if we decided to do those. But that would be negotiable, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure Snowbowl would like money. And essentially, most of this presentation actually came from my own knowledge. I do know quite a bit about this area, but I did, of course, need some specific sources, and here they are. They are references rather than works cited, I believe, because I did not actually cite anything. So, as you can see, the inner basin area of the San Francisco Mountain would be a readily available site for a variety of tours that, for some reason, in relation to the inner basin, have not been well implemented already. So it would be a good idea, I believe, to seize the opportunity to explore the science, the geology, the wildlife, the culture, all of these things with the inner basin. Now, hopefully that will conclude my presentation, and I will just close this out. And there's the awesome music. We're going to stop now. Alright, so I will upload this, and please view the PowerPoint along with it. I'll have annotations indicating slides. And just again, if you can see the diagram, got some various diagrams of sort of the volcano, the eruption itself, how it created the sort of inner basin area. And I would have liked to have shown you the model that my classmate in middle school, but unfortunately that model is no longer around, but it was a very good model. Anyway, I would consider, for the presentation, I would consider it to be from the start of the PowerPoint to the end of the PowerPoint would be the best way to do it, as there's some additional time, and I probably went a little more than I wanted. But that's okay. So I hope you enjoyed, and unfortunately I didn't get to present this in class, but I believe this because I don't feel this PowerPoint would be strong without it. So this is why I did this video, and thank you. And oh, I enjoyed your class, by the way. It was very enlightening, very good experience. I really liked it. So thanks for a good time, and hopefully I'll see you around.